I screamed when he jumped on me, but he didn't stop. Is the title of the story. In this story we discuss in a dystopian future ruled by the Dominion, Rose, a young woman with forgotten origins, becomes the hunted. After a brutal ambush by Kael, a cybernetic soldier from her past, she uncovers her true identity as the last surviving success of a forbidden experiment, Project Revenant. As she awakens hidden powers and reconnects with the buried network of hybrid minds, Rose must confront the Dominion's terrifying control over free will. With the world's fate hanging in the balance, she rises from prey to liberator, facing enemies, memories, and herself to ignite a revolution they thought they had already silenced. Rain sliced through the neon haze like falling shards of glass, hissing against the rusted panels of half-collapsed skyscrapers. Rose walked quickly, the hem of her white cloak darkened with city grime, her boots slapping the slick pavement in rhythm with her heartbeat. She kept to the shadows, eyes flicking upward every few seconds, toward the maze of steel bridges and cables hanging like a web over the alleyways of District 9. She wasn't supposed to be here. Curfew alarms had echoed 10 minutes ago, their sirens swallowed by the city's metallic moan. But she had no choice. The safe house had been compromised, or maybe it never was safe to begin with. Her fingers brushed the edge of the small hexagon-shaped device tucked under her sleeve. Warm. Always warm. She didn't know what it was, not exactly, only that it was important. Too important to leave behind. The last thing her contact said before disappearing was, "If they find that, they find you." The lights above her sputtered. She froze. The shadows thickened, unnaturally. A tingle ran down her spine, primal and electric. She turned sharply. Nothing. Not nothing. She walked faster, nearly breaking into a run, skirting past graffiti-tagged doors and crumbling metal archways. Every sound felt amplified now, the buzz of neon, the crack of a pipe shifting above her, the steady whisper of something tracking her. She could hear it now. Not footsteps. Weight shifting. A breath caught. The low vibration of something unnatural charging. "Stop following me," she said aloud, voice steady, laced with exhaustion and fury. Something moved above. She looked up. And screamed as something massive dropped from the fire escape above and slammed into her, pinning her against the wall with terrifying force. Her breath vanished. Her vision blurred from the shock. Cold hands, mechanical, clamped around her wrists and raised them above her head. The weight on her chest didn't relent. Panic took hold and she thrashed, kicking at anything, her scream echoing off the alley walls like a dying signal flare. Rose. Her name. Spoken in a low, unmistakably human voice. She blinked. Rain streaked into her eyes. The figure leaned close, face shrouded in a hood. Underneath it, dark stubble, soaked skin, and eyes she could almost remember. Eyes not quite right. Too bright. Too calculating. A thin blue light scanned across her face from a lens embedded in his temple. "Target confirmed," he muttered. "Get off me," she spat. He didn't move. Instead, the man, or thing, pressed his gloved hand against her chest. The device under her cloak hummed, pulsed. Responded. Her scream turned into a grunt of shock as her vision lit up in red. A projection. Data. Schematics. A cascading column of alien text scrolled across the air between them before vanishing into the rain. The man stiffened. "They were right," he said quietly. "You're still alive." She slammed her head forward and struck his brow. He grunted but didn't fall. His grip loosened, just enough for her to rip free and shove him off. He stumbled back, hood falling away. He wasn't a machine, at least not entirely. Metal implants lined his neck, and his left eye gleamed like a targeting lens. But the pain in his expression was real. Rose didn't run. She stood in the rain, fists clenched, cloak dripping. "Who are you?" He stared at her like she was a ghost. "You don't remember me." "No," she said. But something about him, his voice, the lines of his jaw, the way he said her name, was digging at her brain like a splinter. I'm Kael. The name fell like a stone through her chest. She had heard it before. She was sure of it. But from where? When? I was with you, he said. Before the fire. Before they took us. Before everything. Her heart pounded harder. Memories threatened to rise, half-formed, warped by time and trauma. White rooms. Screaming. The sear of needles. And a voice. His voice, whispering something through the static of her dying consciousness. No, she breathed. I thought you died, Rose. He stepped toward her, hands lowered now. But they lied. They always lie. You jumped me. You could have killed me. I had to be sure. Her eyes narrowed. Of what? He didn't answer. Instead, he looked over his shoulder, toward the rooftops. His jaw tightened. They're coming. Now that I scanned you, they know where you are. Who? The ones hunting the last subjects. They'll kill you this time. For real. And you? She asked. Kael's voice cracked. I'm trying to stop them. Even if it means stopping you first. She didn't flinch. Then next time, don't miss. They stared at each other, two remnants of something buried, broken, unfinished. Above, the sky cracked open with a low thunder. Not natural. A pulse signal. The kind that hunts by echo and resonance. She had minutes. Maybe less. Kael extended a hand. She stared at it. Her instincts screamed run. But the part of her she thought dead, the girl who remembered fire, pain, betrayal, leaned in instead. And took it. The rooftop was slick with rain and silence. Rose crouched beside Kael, breath shallow, fingers trembling slightly as they hovered over the control nodes embedded in her left wrist. The damp skyline of District 9 stretched out in jagged shapes around them, glowing with the fractured light of surveillance drones too far above to see, yet too close to ignore. Kael didn't speak. He just watched her. She didn't look back. Not yet. She couldn't. The silence between them buzzed with questions, but only one pressed loudest against her skull. What am I? She asked softly. Kael shifted his weight. You're not a weapon. If that's what you think. That's exactly what I think, she snapped, turning to face him now. Her eyes shimmered violet in the dark. You scanned me. Something inside me activated. That wasn't human. That was designed. Kael didn't deny it. Instead, he pulled a thin, cracked data card from his jacket. With a flick, a projection hovered in the air, a sterile white chamber, thick cables coiled along the ceiling, and glass pods arranged like coffins. Inside each, a child. Sedated. Monitored. Tagged. Project Revenant, he said. 14 test subjects. Hybridized genetics. Alien DNA spliced with human resilience. They weren't building soldiers. They were building something worse. Rose stared at the screen, her face pale beneath the purple light. Her own reflection shimmered in the projection, superimposed over the image of a girl sleeping in one of the pods. I was there, she murmured. I remember the hum. The cold. I remember, screaming. And you? I was Subject 9, Kael said. You were 11. Her breath caught. You told me to escape, he went on. When the uprising started. When the facility caught fire and the guards turned on each other. You overloaded the system with your neural surge. I was barely conscious, but I remember hearing you say, run. Then the fire took everything. Rose's hands curled into fists. Her mind raced, torn between fragments of the girl she was and the weapon they had tried to create. I thought you were dead, Kael continued. For years. Until last month, when I intercepted a broadcast from Dominion Labs. A pulse signature, yours. Faint. Buried in static. But alive. And what, you came to kill me? She asked. Her voice was hollow now, drifting like smoke through the storm. No. I came to confirm the truth, Kael said. Because the Dominion isn't just hunting subjects. They're purging them. Anyone who ever touched Project Revenant, gone. Wiped. If they find you, they'll erase you. No body. No record. Nothing. Rose stood and paced a few steps across the roof, rain soaking her cloak until it clung to her shoulders like a second skin. The city lights flickered below like a warning. She turned sharply. Why? Why go to such lengths to erase us? Kael hesitated. Then he spoke quietly. Because you weren't the failure they claimed. You were the success. You survived the neural fusion. You carried the alien code without breaking. You're the only one who can do what they fear. Rose stared at him. And what's that? Kael looked up at her, and for a brief moment, the streetlight caught his face, half man, half machine, but his eyes were unmistakably human. You can wake the network. The words hit her like a weight dropped from orbit. She had no memory of any network, no understanding of what it meant, but her pulse responded. The device under her cloak grew hot, then quiet again, like it was listening. Kael stood now, closing the distance between them. That thing you carry, it's not a tracker. It's a key. To every Revenant node hidden across the grid. They're dormant. Shut down. You're the only one who can restart them. Why would I want to? She asked. Because they're waking the others, he said. Not to free them, to control them. They're not going to let another Rose escape. They'll reprogram every mind, erase every shred of humanity until we're machines with memories that don't belong to us. She looked at him, eyes burning. And what do you want from me? Kael's voice lowered. A choice. That's all. She blinked. Everything they did to us, every test, every pain, it was meant to take our choice away. I've seen what happens when they succeed. I've fought it. I've lost people. I won't lose you. Rose's breath came slow. Heavy. The wind whipped her hair into her face, and she pushed it back absently, eyes fixed on nothing. I'm not the girl you remember, Kael, she said. I don't even remember myself. You don't need to, he replied. You just have to remember what they're trying to erase. She looked at her hands, flexed her fingers, felt the latent current underneath her skin. Her thoughts spun like the data streams in Kael's projection, chaotic, dangerous, unfinished. But one thing rang clear, they were coming. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Now. A low pulse rolled through the sky, too clean to be thunder. Kael turned to the edge of the rooftop. Drones. 2 minutes out. I can jam them, but not for long. Rose exhaled and stepped beside him, scanning the rooftops ahead. There was no path but forward. No past but the one hunting her. And no safety in silence anymore. She pulled the white cloak tighter around her body and nodded. Then let's run while we still get to choose how it ends. The night swallowed them as they ran. Rose vaulted across the fractured rooftop, her boots hitting the metal surface with a clang that echoed like gunfire. Kael landed beside her a split second later, mechanical joints absorbing the shock. Behind them, the sky lit up with blue tracer beams, scanning pulses sweeping the air in rhythmic arcs. The drones weren't guessing anymore. They were tracking. Kael's hand flicked open a signal disruptor, and the pulse shimmered midair, warping the light around them for a breath. This won't hold long, he said, breathless. Keep moving. Rose didn't answer. Her mind had narrowed to a sharp point, run, leap, land, repeat. But beneath that focused urgency, her thoughts boiled. She wasn't afraid. Not anymore. The fear had been burned away, replaced by something colder, heavier, inevitability. She wasn't running to survive now. She was running toward what she'd become. They dropped into a ruined plaza below, shards of glass crunching beneath their feet. Giant statues, half erased by time and war, loomed in silence, relics of a propaganda regime long dead but never buried. Rose spun as the whine of a drone drew near. One swept low, its red targeting beams flaring across the plaza like a net. Instinct took over. She raised her hand, not to shield, but to aim. A pulse erupted from her palm, raw, violet energy crackling through the air, and the drone twisted violently mid-flight before slamming into a concrete pillar, its lights dimming in a hiss of smoke. Kael stared. "That's new." "I didn't think," she muttered. "I just reacted." "You're syncing with it," he said. "Your neural pathways, they're adapting faster than they ever predicted." Rose didn't hear the awe in his voice. Only the warning. If she was changing this fast, what would she be by the time they reached her? A voice crackled through the plaza, amplified and cold. Subject 11. "You have been identified. Surrender and you will not suffer." Kael laughed bitterly. "They always say that." Another beam cut through the mist, then another. Shapes moved through the smoke. Not drones this time. Soldiers. Humanoid. Fast. Rose turned to Kael. "You said they'd reprogram the others. Make them into machines." "They already have." One of the figures stepped forward, taller than Kael, armored head to toe in black neural mesh, a glowing circle pulsing in the center of its chest. Its face was human once, she could tell by the remnants of cheekbones beneath the glass, but its eyes were nothing but hollow white lenses now. Then it spoke. "Rose." She flinched. The voice was familiar. Not in tone, but in cadence. Recognition gripped her throat. Kael's whisper was grim. "That's Subject 5. His name was Dorian. He was our brother." The word cracked something open in her chest. She didn't have time to mourn it. Dorian lunged. Kael intercepted him mid-leap, their bodies crashing into a pile of shattered marble. Sparks and blood mingled in the impact. Rose screamed as Kael's body twisted unnaturally under the force. Two more soldiers advanced. Rose didn't run this time. She turned inward, reached for the current humming under her skin, and let it out. The plaza lit up in a shockwave of violet. One soldier flew back, crashing into the statue's base. The other collapsed, twitching as energy surged through its cybernetic nerves. Kael groaned, trying to rise, blood streaking the side of his jaw. Rose ran to him, dropping beside his broken form. "You shouldn't have taken the hit," she said, panic making her voice tremble. He smiled despite the pain. "Didn't trust you to duck." Dorian stood again. Slow. Relentless. Rose rose to face him, chest heaving. "I'm not going to run from you." Dorian's voice was a whisper now, fragments of his old self pushing through. "They made me forget. But I remember your scream." Rose's throat tightened. "Then remember this." She reached for the key embedded under her cloak. For the first time, she invited the pulse. The energy swarmed her body, pulsing with intention. She stepped toward him, light dancing across her skin like a storm. "I'm not your target," she said. "I'm the override." Dorian hesitated. Kael, gasping behind her, reached for something on his wrist. "You're interfacing with him, don't break the link too fast or..." The words were drowned in light. Rose's palm touched Dorian's chest. The pulse flared, not to destroy, but to reach. To remember. His eyes flickered. His posture slackened. For a moment, just a moment, the man inside the machine saw her. Then the Dominion's fail-safe activated. Dorian's body locked. A high-pitched whine filled the plaza. Kael shouted something, but the explosion came first. Rose was thrown back, her ears ringing, limbs numb. Dorian was gone, reduced to burning fragments scattered across the concrete. She rolled over, pain biting deep, and found Kael crawling toward her, face pale, eyes wild. They're going to detonate every revenant that resists. Rose's face twisted. So they can't be saved. Kael shook his head, blood on his lips. Not unless we wake the entire network first. Then we find the core, she said, standing shakily. And we wake it. Kael managed a smile. That's the Rose I remember. Her eyes narrowed, violet light still burning faintly in their depths. No, she said. This Rose doesn't run. She fights. The entrance to the core was buried beneath a ruined cathedral on the city's northern edge, long since condemned and forgotten by the living. Rose stood at the edge of its fractured threshold, wind howling through the broken stained glass behind her. Kael leaned against a pillar, one arm cradling his ribs, his systems flickering with internal damage. His wounds were worse than he let on, but he said nothing. Neither did she. The time for words had passed. The Dominion was minutes away. Below them, deep in the sublevels where human light no longer reached, the network slumbered. It pulsed faintly now, awakened by Rose's approach, as if it had sensed her long before her first step. The air was heavy with static, and the moment she descended the first stair, something ancient and vast whispered her name through the architecture itself. The corridor narrowed, walls humming with alien etchings. Every step she took felt heavier, not with fear, but with purpose. This wasn't escape anymore. This was arrival. She had been forged to reach this place, and every moment of suffering had led here. Kael caught up, moving slower, his breathing ragged. Once you wake it, he said, you can't unring the bell. I'm not trying to, Rose replied. I'm ringing it loud enough to wake the dead. A massive chamber opened before them, circular and endless, like standing in the center of a star. At its heart hovered the core, a black orb suspended by nothing, encased in threads of liquid light. Dozens of tendrils stretched from it into the walls, like the veins of the world itself. Rose approached, the device at her side pulsing in resonance. The air vibrated. Kael stayed back. This is it. Once you link, the network will respond to your mind. Every revenant. Every drone. Every piece of code will know your thoughts. And the Dominion? She asked. They'll try to override it. Force a reboot. Lock it back in chains. But not if you lock them out first. Her fingers trembled slightly as she raised her hand to the orb. A ripple passed through the core, sensing her approach. It flared once, then quieted, waiting. She inhaled, closed her eyes, and touched it. Light exploded behind her eyes. Her mind was pulled through circuits older than memory, across continents, above satellites, into nodes sleeping in bunkers and towers. She saw other subjects, still hidden, still alive, flashes of faces behind glass, moments of consciousness buried under programming. She didn't speak. She simply reached. Across the world, lights began to shift. Dominion towers blinked red. Drones paused mid-flight. Somewhere in the city's depths, a lab screen went black. She felt them all, every Revenant unit, dormant or enslaved, watching her. Rose sent a single command. Awaken. The system resisted, briefly. Then it folded like glass under pressure. Kael staggered as the floor began to tremble. They're going to strike back. Hard. As if summoned, the cathedral above roared with impact. Heavy steps echoed down the stairwell. Dominion enforcers. Faster than expected. A full unit. Kael reached for his weapon, but his arm shook. Rose turned to him. Stay here. Guard the core. You can't face them all alone, he said. I won't, she replied. Her violet eyes glowed brighter now, threads of light wrapping around her limbs like armor. I'm not alone anymore. She walked back up the corridor just as the enforcers stormed in, black-armored, faceless, weapons raised. They opened fire. Rose raised her palm. The air folded. The bullets slowed, then stopped midair, trapped in an invisible field pulsing with her thoughts. She turned the force outward, and the Dominion soldiers were thrown back like leaves in a storm. One lunged, blade in hand. She caught him mid-strike and touched his chest. His armor flared, then shut down. His body collapsed. Behind her, more lights sparked across the city skyline. Drones spun mid-flight and reversed direction. The Dominion's network began to fragment, overridden node by node. Kael's voice echoed from the chamber. "You're in control." For the first time, she believed it. The last soldier standing raised his rifle, defiant to the end. Rose didn't flinch. "I could erase you," she said, her voice calm, layered with something more than human. "Or I could give you back your mind." He froze. "I remember what they took from us," she added, stepping forward. "Do you?" He dropped the rifle. The cathedral groaned above. The storm was passing. Rose walked out into the light. Her cloak lifted in the breeze, violet streaks running through the fabric like veins of lightning. In the skies above, the Dominion's broadcast signal shimmered and warped. Her voice replaced theirs. "To those still hiding, wake. To those still hunting, your time is over." Kael emerged behind her, limping but alive. "What happens now?" he asked. She looked to the horizon, no longer running, no longer hunted. Her expression was steel. "Now," she said, "we take the world back."